Lyudmila Pavlichenko's story began in 1916 in the quiet Ukrainian town of Bila Tserkva. Born to Mikhail Belov, a locksmith and devoted member of the Communist Party, and Elena Trofimovna, a schoolteacher, Lyudmila grew up in a family that valued both discipline and education. Her parents instilled in her a strong sense of resilience and an unrelenting thirst for knowledge, qualities that would later define her place in history. Yet few know that Lyudmila's early ambitions were far from the battlefield. She initially dreamed of becoming a teacher, inspired by her mother's profession and the transformative power of education. She envisioned a life of shaping young minds, far removed from the violence and chaos of war. But destiny, as it often does, had a different path in store. At the age of 14, her family relocated to Kiev, the vibrant capital of Ukraine, where Lyudmila encountered opportunities that were unimaginable in her small hometown. Even as a teenager, she was fiercely competitive and determined to prove herself in a world where women's roles were often confined to tradition. One pivotal moment occurred when she overheard a group of boys boasting about their shooting skills. Refusing to be outdone, Lyudmila picked up a rifle and astonished everyone with her natural talent. What began as a challenge to silence the boys' bravado quickly became something much more profound, a skill that would eventually shape her destiny. In 1937, Lyudmila enrolled at Kiev University to study history, immersing herself in the narratives of the past while dreaming of a future dedicated to academia. She was captivated by the stories of ancient civilizations, the rise and fall of empires, and the lessons history could offer the modern world. During this time, she joined a local shooting club, treating it as a casual hobby to balance her rigorous academic schedule. But her remarkable talent with a rifle quickly earned her a reputation, and what was once a pastime became an undeniable calling. This quiet period of her life, defined by books, classrooms, and shooting practice, seemed unremarkable at first glance. Yet as the storm of war loomed over Europe, Lyudmila's contrasting passions for history and marksmanship were on a collision course that would catapult her into a role she could never have imagined. By 1941, the storm of World War II had engulfed the Soviet Union. The German invasion, known as Operation Barbarossa, unleashed devastation across the country, and millions of Soviet citizens were called to arms. Among them was Lyudmila Pavlichenko, a 25-year-old university student deeply engrossed in the annals of history, unaware that she was about to make history herself. When Lyudmila reported to the recruitment office, she was met with immediate skepticism. Her slight frame and scholarly demeanor made her an unlikely candidate for combat, and the officers recommended she join as a nurse. But Lyudmila, ever determined, refused to accept this suggestion. Her response was resolute. She wanted to fight. The officers, still doubtful, handed her a rifle and asked her to demonstrate her shooting skills. What followed was nothing short of extraordinary. With steady hands and unerring focus, she hit her targets effortlessly, leaving no room for doubt. The officers, initially incredulous, quickly recognized her potential. She was assigned to the Red Army's 25th Chapayev Rifle Division and thrust into the grim realities of war. Her first 2 kills came within days of her deployment, a sobering moment that marked her transition from an idealistic student to a soldier on the front lines. The experience was as transformative as it was harrowing. Each kill reinforced her resolve, not as an act of violence, but as a necessary contribution to the defense of her homeland. Lyudmila's journey into the elite world of snipers wasn't just a testament to her marksmanship. Becoming a sniper required unparalleled patience, resilience, and an almost instinctive ability to anticipate an enemy's moves. These were qualities that set her apart. Her calm under pressure and sharp tactical mind quickly earned her the respect of her comrades, many of whom had initially doubted her abilities. In the male-dominated world of Soviet combat, Lyudmila's rise was nothing short of revolutionary. Her transformation wasn't just personal, it was symbolic, a quiet rebellion against the societal norms that sought to confine women to roles far from the battlefield. Her early days as a sniper were more than a trial of skill. They were a psychological battle. In one particularly grueling moment, Lyudmila spent days lying in wait for an enemy sniper, motionless in freezing conditions, her rifle poised for the perfect shot. This battle of endurance and strategy wasn't just a test of her abilities, but a vivid demonstration of the mental fortitude required to survive in a role few could endure. From a history student armed with academic ambition to a soldier armed with a rifle, Lyudmila's story in 1941 wasn't merely about survival. It was about redefining expectations, challenging the norms, and proving that strength, resilience, and courage know no gender. The battlefield is where reputations are forged, and for Lyudmila Pavlichenko, her reputation transcended into legend. Her first major deployment was at the Battle of Odessa in 1941, a brutal and chaotic confrontation that tested her resolve from the outset. Over the course of 75 days, Lyudmila recorded 187 confirmed kills, a staggering number that spoke to her unerring precision and unwavering focus. But for Lyudmila, these weren't just statistics. Each shot was a calculated act of survival and defiance against an enemy threatening her homeland. Odessa, however, was only the beginning. When Soviet forces were forced to retreat, Lyudmila was redeployed to Sevastopol, a city under relentless siege that became the crucible of her most extraordinary achievements. The siege of Sevastopol lasted 8 grueling months, with the Germans attacking relentlessly by land, air, and sea. For Lyudmila, this was where her skills were pushed to the absolute limit. The environment was unforgiving, diminishing supplies, freezing cold, and the constant threat of bombardment. Yet in these brutal conditions, Lyudmila thrived. Her confirmed kill count soared to an astonishing 309, including 36 enemy snipers. These weren't just numbers, they represented victories in battles of endurance and strategy, fought silently in the shadows. In the world of sniping, these duels were as much psychological as they were physical. One such duel with a highly skilled German sniper lasted nearly 2 days. Lyudmila lay motionless in a camouflaged position, her body numb from the cold, but her mind laser-focused. When the opportunity finally presented itself, she struck, outlasting and outsmarting her opponent. It was a victory that cemented her reputation as a sniper who could not be outmaneuvered. But her growing infamy wasn't without consequence. German forces soon recognized her as a key target, reportedly deploying specialized units tasked solely with eliminating her. Propaganda leaflets addressed directly to her were scattered across the front lines, urging her to surrender or face certain death. Some even offered rewards for her capture. Yet Lyudmila's resolve never wavered. Instead, she used the heightened attention to her advantage, turning the psychological pressure back onto her enemies. Her reputation alone became a weapon of war, sowing fear among German troops who whispered of Lady Death. Lyudmila's achievements weren't limited to her kill count. She became a symbol of resilience for her comrades, many of whom had initially doubted her capabilities. Her success wasn't just a triumph of skill, it was a challenge to societal norms that had long relegated women to secondary roles in warfare. By the time her reputation spread across the Eastern Front, she'd proven herself not just as an exceptional sniper, but as a leader and inspiration to those around her. Her legacy on the battlefield was often compared to other legendary snipers, both contemporary and historic. Finland's Simo Häyhä, credited with 505 confirmed kills during the Winter War, operated in starkly different conditions. Häyhä's environment of frozen forests required a unique form of guerrilla warfare. Lyudmila, by contrast, faced urban sieges, where she endured constant bombardment and the relentless attrition of a prolonged campaign. While Häyhä's remarkable tally remains unparalleled, Lyudmila's achievements in Sevastopol stand out for the sheer intensity and complexity of the conditions she endured. Within her own Soviet ranks, her record surpassed that of Vasily Zaitsev, whose fame during the Battle of Stalingrad was immortalized in films and propaganda. While Zaitsev recorded 242 kills, Lyudmila's count exceeded his significantly, showcasing not just her marksmanship but her extraordinary resilience. Her accomplishments even rivaled Francis Pegamagabo, the Canadian sniper credited with 378 kills in World War I, whose combat roles extended beyond sniping. Lyudmila's 309 confirmed sniper kills remain a singular achievement, particularly given the adversities she faced. Perhaps most strikingly, Lyudmila accomplished all of this by the age of 26 in less than a year of combat. For many snipers, their careers spanned years, often operating under conditions optimized for their skill set. Lyudmila, on the other hand, operated in an environment where survival itself was a monumental feat. Each confirmed kill came with the weight of immense responsibility. In a rare moment of reflection, she admitted, "Every life I took left a mark." Her words revealed the humanity behind the legend, a reminder that even in war each act carries a profound cost. Lyudmila Pavlichenko's achievements were more than feats of marksmanship. They were a testament to her resilience, her courage, and her unyielding determination to defend her homeland. Through the smoke and chaos of war, she became a symbol of hope, a name that rallied Soviet soldiers and struck fear into enemy lines. By the time she left the battlefield, her legacy as Lady Death was cemented, not just as a soldier, but as a legend whose story would endure long after the war ended. To Lyudmila Pavlichenko's achievements were extraordinary, not only because of her skill as a sniper, but also because of the societal barriers she shattered along the way. In a military system dominated by men, she was an anomaly, and her presence in combat initially drew skepticism and doubt. To many of her comrades, the idea of a young woman excelling in one of the most demanding and dangerous roles in warfare seemed, well, implausible. Yet Lyudmila let her actions on the battlefield speak louder than any words. From the moment she stepped into the Red Army's 25th Chapayev Rifle Division, she was met with quiet skepticism. The unspoken sentiment among many of her male comrades was clear. Could a woman truly belong in the brutal and high-stakes world of sniping? However, Lyudmila's unflinching determination and her unparalleled precision quickly silenced any doubts. By the time her reputation as Lady Death began to spread, she had earned the respect and admiration of even the most skeptical soldiers. Her comrades no longer saw her as an anomaly. She became their peer, their equal, and in many cases their inspiration. Historians have noted that Lyudmila's success was not merely an individual triumph, but a challenge to deeply ingrained stereotypes about women in combat. Dr. Lyuba Vinogradova, an expert on Soviet women in World War II, described her as a pioneer who redefined the role of women in warfare. Her presence and success forced a re-evaluation of what women were capable of, not just in the Soviet Union but worldwide. For the Soviet leadership eager to promote the image of gender equality, Lyudmila's story became a powerful symbol. She was celebrated as a national hero, her name used to inspire others and highlight the invaluable contributions of women to the war effort. Her defiance of societal norms wasn't confined to the battlefield. In 1942, she was sent on a diplomatic mission to the United States to advocate for the opening of a second front in Europe. Her journey marked a new chapter in her life, a transition from soldier to international symbol. Yet even in the United States, she faced the same prejudices she had overcome in the Red Army. American journalists, instead of focusing on her battlefield achievements, fixated on trivial aspects of her life, such as her appearance and whether Soviet women wore makeup. The absurdity of these questions, coming from a press that overlooked her 309 confirmed kills, underscored the gender biases she faced. Lyudmila, however, was not one to back down. In a moment of frustration, she famously rebuked the journalists, saying, "I wear my uniform with honor. It has been covered with blood in battle. I have 309 confirmed kills. Gentlemen, don't you think you've been hiding behind my back for too long?" Her words were more than a retort. They were a declaration. She reminded the world that her accomplishments were not defined by her gender, but by her skill, her courage, and her contribution to the war effort. The statement became a rallying cry for women everywhere, a stark challenge to those who underestimated or dismissed their capabilities. Her defiance in the face of such trivialization endeared her to many, particularly First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt, who formed an enduring bond with Lyudmila during her U.S. tour. Eleanor accompanied her to rallies and public appearances, lending her own voice to Lyudmila's mission. Together they presented a powerful image of resilience and strength, transcending cultural and political divides. Their friendship, though formed under extraordinary circumstances, highlighted a shared commitment to advocating for women and honoring those who sacrificed in the name of a greater cause. Lyudmila's presence in the U.S. was not without impact. She addressed crowds of thousands, speaking passionately about the shared struggle of the Allied forces and the urgent need for unity. Her message was clear. The war effort required the cooperation of all nations and the recognition of the sacrifices being made on every front. Through her speeches and her defiant presence, she became a symbol not just of Soviet resilience, but of the shared human cost of war. Her story also highlighted a profound irony. While the Soviet Union was quick to celebrate her as a wartime hero, she faced challenges upon returning to civilian life, a contradiction that would define much of her post-war years. The societal barriers she broke during the war foreshadowed the struggles she would face in a world still reluctant to fully embrace the progress she represented. Lyudmila Pavlichenko's achievements on the battlefield were extraordinary, but her legacy as a trailblazer who challenged gender norms and redefined what women could achieve is perhaps even more remarkable. Her defiance, her courage, and her refusal to be sidelined left an indelible mark, not just on the history of warfare, but on the broader struggle for equality. She proved that heroism knows no gender and that courage is universal, breaking barriers for future generations to follow. By 1942, Lyudmila Pavlichenko's name was known far beyond the battlefields of the Eastern Front. Her exploits had not only made her a legend within the Soviet Union, but also a symbol of resilience for a world at war. Recognizing her influence, Soviet leadership selected her for a diplomatic mission to the United States. The objective was clear: to advocate for the opening of a second front in Europe and to rally support for the Soviet war effort. But for Lyudmila, this mission was more than political. It was a chance to bring the reality of war into sharp focus for those far removed from its horrors. Her arrival in the United States was historic. At just 26 years old, Lyudmila became the first Soviet citizen to be officially received at the White House. There, she met President Franklin D. Roosevelt and First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt, two figures who would play a pivotal role in amplifying her voice. Eleanor, in particular, was captivated by Lyudmila's quiet strength and commanding presence. The two women, despite their vastly different backgrounds, formed a bond that would endure long after the war. Throughout her U.S. tour, Eleanor Roosevelt accompanied Lyudmila to rallies and public appearances, offering her own support to the Soviet cause. The sight of these two women, one a celebrated sniper, the other the First Lady of the United States, standing side by side was a powerful image that transcended cultural and political divides. Together, they represented the resilience and strength of women in the face of global adversity. However, Lyudmila's interactions with the American media painted a starkly different picture. Instead of focusing on her extraordinary battlefield achievements, journalists fixated on superficial details such as her uniform, her makeup, and whether Soviet women wore skirts. The triviality of these questions, juxtaposed against the backdrop of her 309 confirmed kills, highlighted the pervasive gender biases of the time. Frustrated by the condescension, Lyudmila delivered a sharp and now iconic rebuke. "I wear my uniform with honor. It has been covered with blood in battle. I have 309 confirmed kills. Gentlemen, don't you think you've been hiding behind my back for too long?" This statement, both a defense of her accomplishments and a condemnation of those who trivialized them, resonated far beyond the press conference. It became a rallying cry for women everywhere, a defiant assertion of competence and worth in a world that often sought to undermine them. Lyudmila's public appearances were electrifying. She addressed crowds of thousands, speaking with a passion that left no room for doubt about the urgency of her message. Her speeches highlighted the shared sacrifices of the Allied forces, emphasizing that the war was not just a Soviet struggle but a global one. She spoke not as a diplomat or politician, but as a soldier who had seen the horrors of war firsthand. Her words carried the weight of lived experience, making them impossible to ignore. One of her most impactful addresses took place in Chicago, where she stood before a crowd of thousands and declared, "Gentlemen, I'm 26 years old and I have killed 309 fascist invaders by now. Don't you think, gentlemen, that you have been hiding behind my back for too long?" The crowd erupted in applause, moved not only by her courage but by the stark truth of her words. She wasn't merely advocating for a second front, she was demanding it, challenging her audience to recognize the urgency of the Soviet plight. The tour was not without its challenges, but it left an indelible mark on the American public. Lyudmila became a symbol of resilience and strength, her story serving as a unifying force at a time when global cooperation was critical. Her presence wasn't just diplomatic, it was deeply human, a reminder of the shared cost of war and the strength required to endure it. The bond between Lyudmila and Eleanor Roosevelt extended beyond the tour. The two women remained in contact, their friendship a testament to the connections forged in times of great adversity. Eleanor's respect for Lyudmila was profound, and their relationship became a symbol of the power of solidarity across cultural and political divides. Despite the challenges she faced, Lyudmila Pavlichenko's US tour was a success. She not only brought attention to the Soviet war effort, but also shattered stereotypes about women in combat, proving that courage and resilience know no gender. Her story, both on and off the battlefield, became a testament to the strength of the human spirit and the power of advocacy in the face of adversity. When the guns finally fell silent and World War II ended, Lyudmila Pavlichenko returned to a Soviet Union that celebrated her as a hero. Her name had become synonymous with resilience and precision, and she was revered as one of the war's most effective snipers. But like many veterans, her transition to civilian life was far from easy. The psychological scars of her wartime experiences remained, haunting her long after she laid down her rifle. The weight of her 309 confirmed kills was not a statistic she took lightly. "Every life I took left a mark," she admitted in later interviews. This candid reflection revealed a side of Lyudmila that often went overlooked in the glorification of her wartime heroics, the emotional toll of her actions. As the adrenaline of combat faded, she grappled with the lingering effects of post-traumatic stress, a condition not widely recognized or understood at the time. Her struggles humanized her, reminding the world that even heroes are not immune to the burdens of war. Seeking solace and purpose, Lyudmila returned to academia, completing her studies at Kyiv University. She chose to focus on military history, a field that allowed her to honor the memories of her comrades and ensure that their sacrifices were not forgotten. Her work as a historian was not just an intellectual pursuit, it was a deeply personal mission. By preserving the stories of the war, she found a way to process her own experiences and contribute to a broader understanding of the conflict. Lyudmila also became an active member of the Soviet Committee of the Veterans of War, dedicating her post-war years to advocating for the rights and recognition of veterans. She worked tirelessly to ensure that those who had served on the front lines received the support they deserved. Her efforts were not limited to her fellow soldiers. They extended to the families of the fallen, whose grief she understood all too well. Despite her contributions, Lyudmila led a relatively quiet life after the war. She rarely spoke publicly about her experiences, except in official contexts. When she did, her words carried a depth of understanding that could only come from someone who had lived through the horrors of war. In her private moments, she found comfort in her role as a mother, raising her son while navigating a world that often struggled to comprehend the sacrifices she had made. Yet even in her quieter years, Lyudmila's legacy continued to grow. In the Soviet Union, she was immortalized in films, books, and postage stamps, celebrated as a national hero. Her story inspired countless individuals, particularly women, who saw in her an example of courage and defiance. Her achievements shattered the traditional expectations placed on women, proving that skill and determination could overcome even the most deeply ingrained stereotypes. One of the most enduring aspects of Lyudmila's legacy was her friendship with Eleanor Roosevelt. The bond they had formed during Lyudmila's U.S. tour transcended political and cultural boundaries. Eleanor continued to correspond with Lyudmila, offering her support and admiration. Their friendship was a reminder of the connections forged in times of great adversity, and it stood as a testament to the strength of mutual respect and shared purpose. Lyudmila's influence extended far beyond the borders of the Soviet Union. Around the world, her story resonated with those who admired her resilience and determination. She became a symbol of the unyielding spirit that defines humanity's capacity to endure and overcome. Her life was a bridge between the past and the present, offering lessons that remain relevant in today's discussions about gender equality, mental health, and the human cost of war. In 1974, Lyudmila Pavlichenko passed away at the age of 58. Her death marked the end of an extraordinary life, but her legacy continues to inspire. She was more than just a sniper. She was a historian, an advocate, and a trailblazer who redefined what it meant to be a hero. Her story is a reminder that history is not only shaped by grand events, but also by individuals who rise to extraordinary challenges and leave an indelible mark on the world. Lyudmila Pavlichenko's life is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, the power of determination, and the enduring impact of those who dare to defy expectations. Her legacy is not confined to history books or monuments. It lives on in the courage of those who challenge norms, the resilience of those who rise after falling, and the curiosity of those who seek to uncover the stories history has overlooked. Lyudmila Pavlichenko's story stands as a testament to the extraordinary strength and resilience of the human spirit. She was not born into a life of privilege or power, nor was she groomed for heroism. Instead, she was an ordinary woman who rose to extraordinary circumstances, becoming one of history's most effective snipers and a symbol of defiance against the forces that sought to destroy her homeland. Her legacy is as layered as her life. On the one hand, she was a soldier, a warrior who proved her skill and precision on the battlefield, earning her the nickname Lady Death and solidifying her place as a figure of legend. On the other hand, she was also a scholar and historian, a woman who returned from war to ensure the stories of her comrades and the lessons of the past were preserved for future generations. And perhaps most poignantly, she was a human being, a person who bore the scars of war and lived with the weight of her experiences long after the fighting had ceased. Her life reminds us that heroism is not just about victory in battle. It is about the courage to face adversity, the determination to challenge expectations, and the resolve to create meaning from struggle. Lyudmila's famous words to the American press, "Gentlemen, don't you think you've been hiding behind my back for too long?" echo beyond their original context. They are a call to action, a reminder to confront biases, and an invitation to recognize the contributions of those who are often overlooked or underestimated. The enduring fascination with Lyudmila's story lies not only in her wartime achievements, but also in the universal themes it embodies: perseverance, sacrifice, and the quest for recognition in a world that often resists change. Her life bridges the gap between the past and the present, offering lessons that remain relevant in today's discussions about gender equality, mental health, and the human cost of war. But even as her story inspires admiration, it also raises important questions. How many untold stories like Lyudmila's exist, waiting to be uncovered? How many individuals like her have shaped the course of history but remain hidden in its shadows? These are questions that challenge us to look deeper into the past and to honor those whose contributions have been forgotten or marginalized. Lyudmila Pavlichenko's legacy is not confined to the history books or the monuments that bear her name. It lives on in the courage of every person who challenges expectations, in the resilience of those who rise after falling, and in the curiosity of those who seek to uncover the stories that history has overlooked. Her life is a reminder that the whispers of history often carry the most powerful truths, and that it is our responsibility to listen. Lyudmila Pavlichenko's story is far more than a chronicle of battlefield triumphs. It is a testament to the boundless potential of human resilience, the courage to defy societal norms, and the enduring spirit of those who rise above extraordinary challenges. She was not born into privilege or prepared for the role of a hero, but circumstances shaped her into a figure whose name would echo through history. On the battlefield, she earned the nickname Lady Death for her unparalleled precision and skill. But behind that title was a woman who bore the psychological scars of war, a scholar who turned to history to preserve the memories of those who fought beside her, and an advocate who used her voice to ensure that the sacrifices of soldiers were not forgotten. These layers of her identity reveal a complexity often lost in tales of wartime glory. Her story is not just about the lives she took, but about the life she lived. One defined by determination, sacrifice, and an unyielding sense of duty. Lyudmila's journey challenges our understanding of heroism. It's easy to admire her accomplishments as a sniper, but it is her humanity that resonates most profoundly. Her reflections on the burden of her actions, acknowledging that every life I took left a mark. show us the cost of her role, a cost measured not only in numbers but in the emotional toll that followed her long after the war. This honesty is what elevates her story, making it relatable and deeply moving. Her defiance of societal expectations adds another layer to her legacy. At a time when women were often relegated to supporting roles, Lyudmila fought not only against the enemy but also against the biases of her own comrades. Her success redefined what women could achieve in war and beyond, proving that courage and skill know no gender. Her famous retort to the American press, "Gentlemen, don't you think you've been hiding behind my back for too long?" remains a powerful reminder of her unflinching resolve to challenge stereotypes. The friendships she formed, particularly with Eleanor Roosevelt, show how her impact extended beyond the battlefield. Their bond, forged during Lyudmila's Tsartis tour, highlighted the shared resilience of two women from vastly different worlds. Together, they demonstrated the power of solidarity and mutual respect, offering a glimpse of the connections that can transcend cultural and political divides. Lyudmila's legacy also serves as a reminder of the human cost of war. Her struggles with post-traumatic stress and her efforts to find purpose in peacetime reflect the challenges faced by countless veterans. She turned her pain into purpose, advocating for the rights of those who served, and dedicating her life to ensuring that their sacrifices were remembered. In doing so, she became a voice for those who often go unheard. Her story also leaves us with important questions. How many individuals like Lyudmila have shaped history but remain hidden in its shadows? How many stories of quiet heroism have been overlooked or forgotten? These questions challenge us to look deeper into the past, to honor the contributions of those who defied the odds, and to ensure that their legacies endure. Lyudmila Pavlichenko's life bridges the gap between the past and the present, offering lessons that remain profoundly relevant. Her story speaks to the resilience of the human spirit, the power of determination, and the courage to challenge expectations. It is a story that reminds us that history is not just shaped by grand events, but by individuals who rise to meet extraordinary challenges and leave an indelible mark on the world. As we reflect on Lyudmila's legacy, we are reminded of the whispers of history, those hidden truths that carry the most profound lessons. Her life inspires us to listen to those whispers, to uncover the stories that have been overlooked, and to honor the lives that have shaped our world. Lyudmila Pavlichenko was not just a sniper or a soldier, she was a trailblazer, a historian, and a symbol of the extraordinary strength that lies within us all.